True. Let's go to Karma Green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirates' lines, we break the bondage tight. Kamji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. The drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide, our voices thunder loud. Politics and history, we stitch them in every verse. From Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets, we claim the Kamji verse.
Colonialism, you're a colonizer. It's like, okay, but when we got there, they had no development. When we got to Africa, they had no technological development.
So you think that even if we weren't at war, and sure, you could say that you think that's a leftist argument. I really push back on that because I've learned so much about just like recent history that I didn't know. But you think that the Middle East, like if we had done nothing in terms of the Middle East, that they would just be savages and just be like, America didn't do anything he doesn't set anything backwards. You're just like bombing a place.
Yeah, kind of. I think that we did set them back because when they don't have political order, it prevents development and investment and things like that. But, again, when you look at the antecedents of all these, the history didn't start, like you said, with World War II in the 20th century. There's a reason that European civilization created this enormous gap between them and everybody else. And I don't think it was that it was white supremacy or it was unfair or something like that. I think it's because Europeans are smarter.
The claim that pre-colonial African peoples lacked writing, multi-story buildings, or complex statecraft is not an abstract error. It is a living distortion that erases centuries of documented achievements. One of the most decisive refutations comes from a single African ruler, Ibrahim Njoya, Mifon of the Bamum of Western Cameroon. Faced with the twin threats of slavery and European expansion, Njoya set out to preserve and strengthen Bamum political, cultural, and intellectual life by systematizing a native script, founding schools, building institutions, and reconstructing the royal capital of Fumban. His record is not a marginal curiosity, but a concentrated example of African literate statecraft at the turn of the 20th century. King Njoya did not discover writing. He shepherded and transformed an indigenous system of signs into a compact, usable syllabary, and then institutionalized literacy. Over roughly 15 years, circa 1896 to 1910 and beyond, Njoya moved the Bamum signs through progressive stages, commonly described as Lerewa, early pictographic forms, Mbima, mixed, Nyi Fafu, further simplification, Rini Fafu, and Rini Fu Fen, culminating in Akauku, Akauku, and its Mfemfe variant. These later iterations reduced hundreds of pictograms into under 100 syllabic graphemes and included digits and punctuation, enabling routine bureaucratic uses such as maps, birth records, court rulings, property transactions, and school instruction. Njoya also established royal schools, a royal archive, and a corps of scribes, concrete institutions associated with literate governance. The Bamum script's stage modernization is well documented and preserved in manuscript collections. What makes Njoya's achievement decisive in the face of denials is institutional depth. The Bamum Royal Archive contains administrative records, family registers, and manuscripts dating from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Documents produced, used, and preserved by Bamum institutions before colonial administration subsumed local record-keeping. The existence of an archive and of schools where children were taught a local script shows that writing was not merely occasional pictography, but an organized technology of memory and governance. This institutional testimony falsifies any blanket claim that Africans were uniformly non-literate before European contact. Njoya's architectural legacy is equally revealing. After a palace fire in 1913, he led reconstruction of the Fumban Royal Palace, incorporating multi-level planning, verandas, deep eaves, laterite and adobe techniques, framed openings and carved woodwork, all elements of an indigenous architectural language adapted to local climate and resources. Njoya himself described upper rooms, terraces, ladders that functioned like stairs and plumbing provisions, features consistent with multi-story domestic and court architecture. European observers who assumed the palace must be a copy of European houses missed how the design synthesized local building traditions. Hausa, Musgum, somber tata forms into an innovative vertical complex. The Fumban Palace thus exemplifies indigenous, multi-story building practices and architectural sophistication. But Fumban is not an isolated case. Across infra-Saharan Africa, there are numerous pre-colonial examples of vertical construction and dense urbanism. Great Zimbabwe's multi-level clay and thatch houses and extensive stone circuits, the multi-storied domestic clusters and monumental stone walls of the Zimbabwe Plateau and its successor centers, and the towering mud brick mosques and cityscapes of the Sudano-Sahel, e.g., Djenné, where large multi-level earthen buildings dominate city life and religious architecture. These archaeological, architectural and urban remains together discredit any claim that pre-colonial Africa lacked tall or complex buildings. If one ruler's archive proves that writing existed, the continent's manuscript and scriptural traditions prove that literate cultures were widespread and diverse. Written traditions include ancient Kemetic Meduneter, the Meroitic script of the Nile Valley, the Ge'ez script of the Horn, Ajami literatures, African languages written in Arabic script, the Vai and Bamum syllabaries, Nsibidi pictographs in West Central Africa, and the enormous manuscript corpus produced in Timbuktu and other Sahelian centers. Treatises on law, astronomy, medicine and theology dating from the medieval period onward. Timbuktu alone preserved hundreds of thousands of manuscripts covering law, medicine, poetry, and science. These literate archives demonstrate that African societies produced technical, legal, and scholarly literature long before and independent of European intervention. The assertion that Africans had no wheel must be interpreted carefully. The technology of wheeled vehicles is uneven in its geographic distribution for clear ecological and economic reasons. Terrain, the availability of draft animals, and road systems all influence whether wheeled carts become central to transport. That said, wheel technologies and the potter's wheel are documented in African contexts. Kemet used wheeled chariots from the Bronze Age. Pottery wheels appear in Nubia. Saharan rock art depicts chariots and wheeled vehicles. And ox-powered mechanisms, water wheels, sakya and shaduf, appear in Nile and Nubian contexts. The sparse archaeological footprint of wheeled vehicles in some regions does not indicate an absence of technological capacity or social complexity. It reflects adaptation to environment and social choices, not a civilizational deficit. The popular insistence that Africans had no writing or no tall buildings before European contact is not a neutral historical hypothesis. It is a narrative rooted in long histories of racialized explanation, Hamitic theory, colonial anthropology, that sought to deny African agency and to explain complexity as external import. The historical record, manuscripts, standing architecture, archives, inscriptions, and the testimony of indigenous actors like Njoya, collapses those myths. To treat African literate practice as exceptional is to misread a continent in which diverse pathways to literacy, urbanism, and statecraft developed across millennia in response to local needs and interactions. King Njoya's concentrated effort, creating a syllabary, founding schools, compiling archives, building institutions, and reconstructing a palace, provides a single, vivid refutation of claims that Africans lacked writing, multi-story buildings, or civilizations. His work displays how literacy is invented, adapted, and institutionalized, how architecture can be locally inventive without being derivative, and how technology is integrated into larger systems of governance, law, and culture. When critics reduce the history of an entire continent to caricature, they ignore archives, manuscripts, and buildings that testify to sophisticated social life. The appropriate response is not invective, but documentation. Read the Bamum manuscripts, visit Fumban or its photographs and plans, study Timbuktu's libraries, and examine Great Zimbabwe's stonework. The evidence is substantial, coherent and unavoidable. To deny it is to insist on ignorance.
Let's go to Comma Green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirates' lines, we break the bondage tight. Kamji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. Ship drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide, our voices thunder loud. Politics and history, we stitch them in every verse. From Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets, we claim the Kamji verse.